Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Tell Me Everything Fargo Fridays. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. I have a great guest on today. He is with Fleet Defender, Terry Reinert. He actually pinged me on LinkedIn, pinged me, DM me, whatever the word is. Anyways, wrote me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I love what you're doing. Let's talk. I want to show you what I'm doing. And we met and was trying to figure out like strategically how we can work together professionally. But then I was like, you got to come on the podcast and talk about what you're doing. I just love all the new innovations on cargo theft and cybersecurity and how we're as an industry trying to get better and the new techs that are coming out there. And the ones that are legitimate that I'm like, when I watch it, I'm like, wow, this is cool. Those are the ones I want to show you guys. So just know I pre-vet all the guys that come on as well, because I'm just a pre-vetting machine. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so really cool. So just to kind of really fast recap what this episode is going to be about, and you guys will be able to hear all the things. But a Fleet Defender does a lot of the cybersecurity for fleets. So you'll be able to see, like he was showing me the dashboard and basically being able to see where all your trucks are at, which a lot of times, ELD companies do, but picking up on any weird anomalies like, this, let's just talk about like fuel theft, for instance. Like it shows like, the tank had this much gas used or this much gas left, but he instead of doing 20 gallons that he needed, he did 50 gallons. Like what happened there? And being able to see that, or like, hey, all of a sudden he's parked somewhere and there's fuel leaving the truck, and alerting that really in real time. So maybe maybe the driver's in on it, maybe not. If they're not, being able to alert and maybe have them like run out and stop the bad guy from siphoning gas. Whatever. But there's a lot of stuff on cargo theft that they do too, which is huge. They're working directly with the FBI, also working with different law agencies as well, which will be huge for the whole market, just to really have the police and FBI have that real time visibility on like even a deeper level. Like I think even, ELD companies and things like that, they can see all those things, but being able to pinpoint this is the alert that we have. This is why it needs to be checked into further. This is exactly where they're at. And what we talk about too is, these guys are unloading trailers in like 10 minutes. Like they have a crew ready to go, and they'll grab a trailer, drive 10 minutes on the road, hook up, back up to another trailer, unload quickly, and then leave your trailer there. So this is happening super fast. Real-time detection is crucial. So reach out to Fleet Defender if you want to learn more about your fleet. I'm also working on how can we, help brokers out with the same type of technology and what they're doing. So I guess stay tuned on that and what we can do. But anyways, let's jump in the episode. Super excited. Cybersecurity is a huge thing. So keep tuning in to Tell Me Everything with the Frog Girl Friday stuff. We're digging into a lot of that. I've been finding a lot of great companies that are doing that too. Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, blah, 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 all the things. So that way you're staying up to date. Let's jump in. All right. I think we're live. Well, thanks so much for joining me on Fraud Girl. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I appreciate you coming on. I guess let's start off and kind of tell a little bit about yourself and kind of your company and where you came from and how you made it here. And that's a big question, I know.
It is. Yeah, I'll try to keep it a little short. Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career mostly in offensive cyber warfare. Working with governments and the Department of Defense, kind of on the offensive. I've always been a hacker. Like I grew up taking things apart, teaching myself how to code. So it was
Oh,
kind of just
wow.
like a natural fit to evolve into an actual career. And somewhere along the way, started getting really interested in transportation. So like looking at vulnerabilities in cars and trucks and trains and planes and things along those lines. So it was kind of a natural fit when I started having conversations with leaders within the logistics space. On the cybersecurity side, I think on the IT information technology side, a lot of companies are doing a lot better, right? Like they've got
Yes.
firewalls, they've got all the permissions in place, all the security controls. But now that vehicles have become very connected, vastly expands the attack surface of a company that, especially logistics fleets. And
Yeah.
so, like the endpoint of your network is no longer like still behind a wall. It's actually out there moving, and people are touching it, and you don't know who they are, and it's in an uncontrolled environment. And so we started Fleet Defender to basically address the cybersecurity of those vehicles, so that way the vehicles are protected as an extension of their enterprise network.
And I think as we get more into like, I don't know, autonomous trucks and stuff like that, this is going to be a bigger and bigger and bigger thing that needs to be addressed. I think, anyways. Like, you don't want somebody hacking in and then driving your truck and slamming into a bunch of people or whatever, or taking your load
Yeah.
into Mexico instead of where it's supposed to go.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you've got like an old 1960s car, like there's really nothing to hack into. And if you
right,
did, what are you going to do? Like there's really nothing there. But like in modern day vehicles where like the entire steering system is digitized, the braking system's digitized, like everything is digitized. Like if you have the right level of access, you can control all of those things. And
yeah,
so, you have a really good point that, like the Auroras, the Kodiaks, all the autonomous trucking companies that are coming out, what you can do once you gain access to one of those vehicles is very different than what you could do on a much older vehicle. And, as these older trucks phase out and newer trucks phase in, what the adversary can do actually grows.
yeah, crazy. But it's funny because you just don't like. I would never know all these things can happen. So I guess if you can kind of go into like what are some things that are happening, like that you're seeing now with with Fleet Defender, like what type of scams are happening, fraud, hacking. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Some malicious, some non-malicious, right? So we've got all these different categories or buckets that we put our alerts into, like when we detect things that are going on. So, and a lot of them kind of shift into two parts, right? Like one is the cybersecurity and the cyber defense of the vehicle, and then the other one is the fraud side, which is
Sure.
like your fuel theft, your cargo theft, things along those lines. And we kind of cover all of them with the technology that we have. On the cybersecurity side, a lot of what we see would be insider threats, drivers doing things, not meaning to be malicious, but, trying to use like in cab technology to watch Netflix or to, pair headphones to, or to gain access to things along those lines, which again,
Yeah,
it's not malicious. Like they're not trying to expose the company to risk, but essentially they are without really realizing it. And then on the other side, there is some maliciousness to it with some where they're trying to alter hours of service logs. They're trying to bypass mileage counters and time counters so they can drive more and kind of bypass some of the regulations and compliance issues that are in the industry. And so there's those two kinds of sides. And then there's some of the more adversarial, scarier stuff where we have indicators that there are certain adversaries that are looking to disrupt our supply chain in times of
mm,
conflict. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase that like wars are won with beans and bullets. It's
okay,
all
yeah.
about logistics.
Oh,
Like
okay,
if you deploy an army somewhere or a navy or whatever, like you got to be able to feed them. You got to supply them
right,
with fuel. You got to supply them with gas and bullets. And if you can't do that, then you can't essentially fight a war or win a war.
right,
Logistics is king. And
yeah,
so same thing with a country, right? Like if the wheels stop turning across our country, Americans can't eat. And if people don't eat, they're 9 meals away from chaos. And
right,
society breaks down, rule of law breaks down. And so securing logistics is actually a very core national security mission because
hmm,
without logistics, we don't have a country.
yeah,
We don't we have nothing, right?
right,
So we know that there's adversaries out there looking to disrupt supply chains. They're already hacking into enterprise networks.
mm,
We have indicators that they're actually attacking vehicles as well and trying to gain access to pre-position themselves to be able to have an effect once they get to the point of wanting to slow down America and stop doing what we're doing.
wow, that's scary.
Yeah, and then of course on
Yeah,
the theft side, I mean, all you got to do is watch the news, right? Like
mm,
$2 million worth of tequila went up in smoke. A 500 or $500,000 load of lobsters just disappeared a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's growing, and those threat actors, like the people that are doing the cargo theft, they're getting smarter about it,
for
right? Like
sure.
first they start forging documents. Now they're actually using cyber techniques. There's actually been a couple of news stories out there of cyber criminals teaming up with cargo theft organizations to basically make it smarter, like identify the truck that they want, know what's on the truck, where's the truck going, where can they interdict it in the best way, and then off it goes. So it's a really interesting world.
Yeah, that's wild. And I'm sure, like, especially drivers that run like the same type of routes, hacking into their ELD and being able to see like, oh, this guy always picks up here and delivers here and goes back and forth. And I know the commodity that they're shipping is X. So I know, he typically stops at this truck stop because a lot of times drivers are creatures of habit if they run
Yep.
dedicated lanes.
Mhm.
And so I'm sure that would be kind of the biggest thing that somebody would want to look for. Right now, they're kind of like the OG way. What people would sit at, like the bad guys would sit near customers, whatever facility, and then watch the trucks and just follow them for X amount of miles, and so you kind of learn their route that way. But that takes a lot of time and money, and you're having to do
Mhm.
one truck at a time. Where cyber wise, you can watch like a whole bunch of different trucks if you're able to get into like an ELD network, for instance.
Right, and I
Wow.
mean, and the more people involved in an exercise or in a crime, like that's more people that could leak it, that could, if someone gets
Right.
busted, they could tell on the rest, that kind of stuff, and give away the operation. Whereas, if you're able to just hack into a truck and get the load manifest, you know what's in it, you know where
Right.
they're going, and if you have access to the telematics system, you've got location, you've got routing, navigation, you've got all that stuff. So then you can start identifying where are the trailer drop locations where they're, dropping off trailers, picking up other trailers. So then, I've got 3 trailers worth of Samsung TVs that are sitting in this yard right here that
Wow.
doesn't even have a fence. Right. And so it's just intelligence, right? Like it's just like a military operates with intelligence. Criminals do the same thing. They gather intelligence, they optimize their workflows, they get
Yeah,
smarter about it, decrease the amount of people, increase their ROI. Like it's just a business,
it is a
just
business.
not a morally good one.
Right, exactly. And so I know we talked a while back about you kind of show me your system and kind of what all you guys do, but the the fraud part, even with like the gas type of thing. Like I know you were saying, like even like people can like siphon gas. So sometimes it's not the driver's fault; it just can happen. But your guys' technology can kind of decipher that. Like, is it where maybe the driver was in on it, or is it where like it's the guy's totally innocent? I mean, I guess you're not there sitting watching the guy, but seeing patterns of like the same guy doing the same thing over and over again. Clearly, the guy knows about it. Whereas a one-off, maybe he had somebody siphon gas or whatever. So I guess you want to talk a little bit on that too, because I think that's a big problem for a lot of fleets.
Yeah, and there's 2 sides of the gas, like, the fuel theft side of it, right? Like, the first one is kinda like what you mentioned. The truck is in an unsecured location, whether it's sitting behind a Dollar General or a Best Buy or at a truck stop, and someone siphons some fuel out. That's one way. It does happen. We
Yeah.
detect that, and we can see how many gallons and they've gotten really smart, right? Like, it's 20 gallons or less. Because any
Wow.
more than that, like it starts to get picked up in paper trails. It's more easy to detect. And so they've figured out like to stay under the radar, 20 gallons or less. And so
Mm.
what's the cost of 20 gallons of diesel and how many times can we do it a day?
Yeah.
That's what they're making there. And then the other one too is when and drivers could be complicit in that and they might be oblivious to that. Whereas
Right.
the one where drivers are more malicious is when they go to the pump, they swipe their fuel card, they fill up, and then they put 10, 20 gallons in somebody else's tank and then
Yeah.
take cash from that person, right? And so one of the things that we do, we can't just look at one data set. Like we can't just look at the data from the truck. We would never catch that second case.
Yeah.
So what we do is like we integrate with everything. So we integrate with the trailer telematics, we integrate with the truck telematics, we integrate with fuel card systems and the companies that, a lot of the logistics companies use for fuel. So
Hmm.
we know that driver, Bob is at this gas station filling up. They put this much out of the pump, how much went into the vehicle,
Mm.
right? So now we
Yeah.
can start lining up the data across multiple different systems and get really, really accurate with what we do.
Yeah. And throwing up those red flags quickly too. It's not like when you're finally going through your audit log on things and you're
Yep.
months later and you're losing X amount of dollars because of that. Yeah, exactly.
And
Crazy.
we know in real time, like we're getting the data in real time and our AI
Mhm.
models are like looking at all the data in real time. So we know like you can literally call a driver while fuel is being taken out of the truck and be like, what's going on
Yeah.
right? You know,
Are you at your truck? Are you in the truck stop? What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
so right away, you don't know, hours, months, down the
Right.
line. So you can get more like in the military, we call it getting left of the bang. Like on a timeline, you try to get as
Uh-huh.
far ahead of an incident so you can prevent that incident from occurring. Same
Yeah.
thing. We try to get as far left. So we even look at like drivers, where they're driving, if they're deviating from a route. And then we'll look at weather, traffic, like
Yeah.
previous patterns, like why is the driver deviating from the most optimal route? And then if there's weather, of course, like the driver's got to make decisions. Like they're really
Mhm.
good at what they do. If there's traffic, of course, they're going to deviate around the traffic to keep the load moving. But if
They're going
we
by
can't
their
figure out
girlfriend's
why,
house.
yeah, they're like, but if there's really no good reason that we can tell,
Yeah.
then, that's where you can be like, okay, maybe Not
Yeah.
definitely, but maybe there's something going on there. We can increase the amount of monitoring that we're doing or make a phone call and see what's going on.
Interesting. So I guess that goes hand in hand with cargo theft. Which was going to be
Mhm.
my next question is how what you guys can do for cargo theft. Because I think a lot of the times, it's hard for a lot of the cargo theft happens with like mom and pop companies. There are
Right.
definitely a lot of things happen with larger fleets because they're not able to see all the things all the time. And sometimes smaller companies are good in that way where they want to, it's their whole business. If something happens, they could go under. So there's, mixtures of cargo theft happening all over the place. I think knowing, like you said, whenever like ahead of time, this is happening. Maybe it's not. Maybe they got the truck stolen and the driver's scared to report it, or there's so many scenarios. So I guess you can kind of go into that too of like, what are some key things you guys look at?
Yeah, well, like you just said, there's many different scenarios. From the outside, you think, oh, cargo theft, that can't be a very complicated problem. We should be able to solve this, but it's
Absolutely.
actually extremely complex just because logistics is complex. And so, like, let's just say, like, I'm going to make this up, but like, just company A, they have a trailer and they have a tractor. Tractor connects a trailer. They pull the load somewhere and they drop it off, right? So simple, but it's
Mhm.
not that simple, right? Like, you have a tractor that belongs to the company, move it to this yard, and then a completely different company that you don't
Yeah.
have access to telematics data is now taking that trailer the next leg of the trip. And
Right.
you start coupling these things together, and now you have this mixture of assets that is very, very complex. And if you're not watching everything happening in real time and you don't know what's supposed to happen, like if you don't have paperwork that says truck A and trailer B are going together, then
Yeah.
it's really hard to say, like, well, I see the trailer moving, but is it a legitimate tractor pulling it? Is it not a legitimate tractor pulling it? Like, when was the tractor supposed to be there? Is it going the right direction?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just logistical issues around like really understanding the cargo theft. But then there's also like the technology side. Like there was a couple cases is documented in the news. I think it was the tequila that was stolen. They were actually spoofing GPS.
Hmm.
So the trailers looked like they were moving in the right direction when in reality they weren't. They were going to a different location. And so that just goes to show the sophistication of the criminals and how sophisticated that they're getting. And if
Right.
you're just looking at location alone, then you're not going to see that because that can be spoofed. And that's why like we take the approach of look at all data and then let our models like figure out like what is anomalous and what is not. Because if you're just looking at one data point, just like location, speed, temperature, door state, seal state, those types of things, like you're not going to actually be able to pick up because the problem is too complex to use one data point.
Yeah.
Is like that's my point. And so we'll look at everything. So to your question of like what do we look at and what do we see? Like criminals, they can bypass smart seals, they can bypass door sensors, so they can
Yeah.
actually open the doors on your refrigerated trailer and empty the whole thing, and you'd never even know it if you're just
Yeah.
looking at the door state. But we look at everything, like we look at temperature, so we can actually see, okay, doors are closed, but temperature's rising. Well, is there
Yeah.
still refrigerant? Is the refrigerator still on? Like, is the reefer running? It is. So there's nothing that explains why temperature is going up other than
Pulling the
something
doors off
anomalous is
or
happening.
on the sidewalls. Yeah. It's crazy how they can do all that stuff too. I'm like, golly, they've got, I mean, it makes sense. It's not rocket science to take a trailer apart. And it blows my mind sometimes whenever something like that does happen and people are like, well, the seal is still there. I'm like, and especially when it's like a plastic seal, I'm like, the plastic seal is still there. Cool. Anyways,
Yeah.
keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the criminals have gotten really good. Like they can strip a trailer in minutes,
Right.
right? And they can drive off with it. But what's really interesting is if you're looking at the right data, they're doing it. So like, you've got motion sensors, like these things that are detecting whether the truck's in motion and like they have sensors. So as they're touching them and pulling them off the truck, like if you're not, again, if you're looking at the data in real time, then you can actually see them doing that. And
Hmm.
usually like kind of the MO and what we've found is like when someone steals a trailer, they usually steal it from a yard and they have a swap point within a couple of miles. So they'll just drive it
Yeah.
down the street to another warehouse or a field. They'll have another trailer waiting there. They'll open it up, they'll swap all the cargo, and then they'll just dump the trailer and off they go. So we know they're going to stay close. And so like when you know it's happening, you can alert local authorities and assuming you
Wow.
can get them to respond because sometimes they don't, sometimes
Hmm.
they do. They know to look within, 3 to 5 miles around that for some kind of weird behavior in a field at a building, trailers moving in and out, and then they can actually catch them. So there's been times where we've actually caught
Wow.
with one customer, they actually were able to catch people unloading a truck.
That's crazy. Yeah, 'cause I mean, really, you need to know that stuff pretty much immediately it's happening. Like you
Mhm.
said, they're only going I mean, what's a couple miles? That's like 10 minutes, and then they're able to unload, like, in 10 minutes. So you have, like, a 30-minute window, you know?
And
Right.
they roll in with a truck full of guys with pallet jacks and everything
Yeah.
else,
I mean, it
swap it
doesn't
really
take them
quick,
long.
and then they're
Yeah.
gone. Just like that, so fast.
Yeah, and they make sure it's somewhere where there's not cameras and there's not like you said, the middle of a field or something like that. That's wild. That's really cool you guys can do that. And so I know you mentioned, like, even, like, reporting to authorities. Do you guys have relationships with, like, police departments, or do you guys work hand in hand with them to kind of, be able to give them live information like that? Or because I know whenever I was with, the California Highway Patrol, they do have some systems, like, in place with them, but they're kind of just saying, like, really they need help from tech providers like yourself to, like,
Mhm.
I need this quickly because I can because they wanna go out there and get the things. That's, like, super fun for them when they're in, like, a like, they're like, "That's the highlight of my work
Right?
is to go find the bad guys and chase them down," but it's hard to do when you don't have any tracking or you can't see where they're at and it's a mystery.
Yeah. When 95% of your job is paperwork, that
Yeah.
5% that's not gets really exciting. And
Yeah.
that's what you live for. That's what keeps you going. Yeah. So we've got a relationship with the FBI at the federal level
Wow.
that deals with like the theft and the organized crime and stuff rings. We haven't fully integrated with law enforcement yet in terms of like automating everything, but it's something that we're working on because the
Mhm.
idea is to be able to actually, and there's so many different systems. Like there's
Yeah.
no one national dispatch across the globe where you can just
Yeah.
send a
Exploded,
packet and boom, you got it. So
unfortunately.
it's pretty complex, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're going to get there to where like they'll actually dispatchers will have it show up. And then the other side is just getting people to respond, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're dealing with domestic violence in this call and you have limited resources, cargo theft takes a secondary step to where there might be a life in danger.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And so then it's just a matter of how does it rack and stack in priorities? Because a lot of these drop yards are in rural areas. Like
Yeah.
they're not, in major cities and stuff. The ones that are in the major cities have cameras and guards at the gate, and there's still theft from there. But now it becomes a we're going to forge paperwork and social engineer our way into the yard and then out the door with a trailer versus just go grab it, snatch it, run it down the street.
Right.
So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm hoping I guess I think it's the Corca bill. Hoping that gets passed, hopefully this year, fingers crossed. And then that would hopefully make like a centralized system for specifically cargo theft. To be able for them to see like worldwide or not worldwide, nationwide of
Mhm.
like, this is here and so forth. We'll see.
yeah, it's
Hoping there's some advancements on the, police front.
Yeah, and it's really complex. It's really interesting, and we deal with some other companies and fleets that are across North America. So they pull loads down in Mexico. We've been talking with some fleets down in South America, and the problem changes a little bit because then they're
Oh,
like, well, I mean, how do you deal with cargo theft when it's actually a guy holding a shotgun to my driver?
yeah,
It's like, well, that's not a tech thing. That's a little different. Now we're shifting from like saving cargo to saving lives, right? Like
right.
that changes
But
things just
knowing
a little
that
bit.
yeah, almost like knowing that though right away would help them possibly get their life, saved because even if they at that point the driver just needs to give up the truck, it's not worth their life. But
Right.
then at least like this happened immediately and then maybe they can find them down the road and whatever.
Well, you can go interdict and get the criminals, but you can also provide support to the driver, right? Like when they strip the driver, take his phone, take the tablet, take the truck,
Mm,
they're just on the
on the
side of the
side of the
road,
road.
they're
Right.
at risk. And so
Yeah.
now it kind of becomes a two-part thing. One, like protect the life and save, interdict and provide support to the driver without them having to walk 10 miles to
Yeah.
the latest village and report it. And also go try to get that cargo back and disrupt the ring, catch the criminals so you can at least take them off the street and they not going to continue.
So I guess when that does happen and they're on the side of the road, is it just kind of like almost like they almost need like a safe button in their truck where it triggers like, this is happening, kind of like a bank does.
Yeah, it's what do they call 'em, like EPIRBs or whatever it is. It's the same stuff that you wear when you go hiking in case you get in
Mhm.
danger. They'll ping the satellite and stuff. So there are companies that'll do things like that for the driver. Put in yeah, like what'd you call like the safe button, the
Yeah.
the
Uh,
panic button like in a
Panic
bank
button. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, or they'll have something that they can push. But a lot of companies don't pay for it.
Right.
The
No.
drivers are kind of out there. They're on their own, and
Mhm. Well, even like on a driver level, I guess if that's something, that's their profession and maybe that's something they want to. Anyways, it's cool to know that that type of stuff is even out there. But I think And like you said, getting people to pay for things too is like that's
Mhm.
just like a whole nother ballgame. Like pallet trackers, for instance, I'm like, why are we not doing more pallet tracking when you're shipping $1 million shipment? Like, why would you not have couple pallet trackers in there? They're $60 a piece or whatever it is, and even like integrating that information, like the pallet tracking information with the trailer, with the truck ELD, and kind of all that stuff syncing up where something's off, something's somewhere else that shouldn't be. They're not all connected. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
there's a
and
lot
that's it.
tech-wise we can do to help, but
Yeah, and I mean, even with pallet trackers, as they're yanking pallets off, if they know they're there, they'll grab them and ditch those
yeah,
too. And so it still becomes the same problem, right? Like everything that we focused on since the beginning of the company and founding the technology is we have to do it in real time.
yeah,
Like we can't look at logs, 6 months from now or even 6 minutes from now because they're so fast and they
yeah,
get it done so quickly that we have to respond immediately. And so we have to be real time. And so, we've even pushed a lot of our detection to the vehicle. So we do have like cloud components, like we've got an entire security operations center that collects data from every single truck that has our technology on it and every trailer. And we're monitoring all that stuff, but we also have detection at the truck level. So that way we're not waiting for like data to come up, models to process. We
yeah.
detect on the platform and signal out. So it's got to
That's
be
pretty
real
cool.
time or else you can't respond quick enough.
Yeah, you missed the ball completely, and there, like we
Mhm.
said, like the 20, 30 minutes it takes, every minute counts. Almost like
Right.
the first 48, but like the
Yep.
first 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The first 30 seconds. Yeah. And
right,
then, but when where we're going to, like we've got rental car companies that have technologies where they can like disable the engine
right.
or like, cut off the fuel supply and stuff. And so there are capabilities like trailers have the ability to like just lock the brakes. Like you can disable a trailer from moving, but the key is you just have to make sure you're accurate. Because if you
Yeah,
disable a trailer when it's a false positive, like that's the quickest way to lose your customers because they're like, well, you
yeah.
took my trailer out of the equation and it was okay. And so like that's where like we spend a lot of time really making sure we get it right. That when we provide an alert, it's a real alert.
Wow.
Otherwise, people become desensitized to it.
Yeah. No, totally. You're right. I think because like even with on my end, like pre-vetting carriers and stuff, like if they are numb to the same type of red flags or whatever, they just disregard it whenever sometimes it is a real red flag and they need to look into it. But it's the same thing popping up because it's not that maybe not even that accurate, but it is like not that like added several steps so that you can know for sure it's a real threat.
Right.
So cool. What else?
It's just, I think a lot of people are becoming aware of the issue. It's a very complex issue, and I'm pretty excited to see like where we're going with it. Like we haven't found a fleet yet that we've talked to that's just like, cargo theft, no big deal. Like we don't
Right.
really need to talk about it. Most of the time it's like, wait a minute, so what do you do? And
Yeah.
how could you stop this? And we found that there's, everybody's got insurance against this stuff. But, when you've got insurance that covers $250,000 a load and you lose a half $500,000 of TVs or $400,000 worth of lobster
Yeah.
in one go, that is, like you said, that could end companies.
Yeah, totally. Even if it is
That's
insurance
huge.
paying you, your premiums go up. I mean, it does
And that
cost
too.
you regardless.
That too.
And almost like home insurance, like if you have different security measures at home, your premium can go down. I'm assuming something like that if you present what you guys are doing to your insurance company and saying like
Yeah.
these are all the security measures I've taken, kind of almost pays for itself in a way as far as,
Mhm.
getting that deduction. I would imagine. I'm not in
Yeah.
insurance, so I'm just
We're right on the cusp of that. Yeah,
yeah,
we've been working with a couple of the fleets that are our customers and working with their insurance groups. A lot of the bigger companies, the enterprise, they're self-insured in
yeah,
some areas, but not others. And so it's working on both, like kind of adjusting how they're self-insuring, but also getting cheaper rates on where they have to shop the insurance out
mhm,
externally. We work with them and give them the right. And a lot of insurance companies aren't asking the questions yet.
yeah,
They're not asking like, do you have a cyber intrusion detection system in your vehicle?
right,
And so we're actually giving the information to the fleets so they can go to them during their renegotiation time, be like, this is what we're doing and this is
yeah,
how we're decreasing our risk. And then like that's starting to happen now. So within the next 3 to 5 years, like every insurance company, well, one, the government's going to mandate that you have the technology
yeah.
because
It's
it
getting
just
there, right? Because even, like,
makes
with
sense.
the ELD stuff, they're saying
Mhm.
because like, it's funny, I was talking to, Danielle Chafin, I don't know if you ever met her, but She
Mm.
was talking to me about how quickly and easily it is to set up an ELD company. Like you just simply fill out a form and you can make an ELD company. And like nowadays with all the things online, you can just code whatever. And then at that point, they're integrating with tracking devices or whatever, and then
Mhm.
spitballing out whatever information they want to because they can just program whatever they want.
Yep.
Like it doesn't even have to be a legitimate ELD necessarily. So I think now they're supposed to be cracking down on that, and
Yep.
hopefully that happens. But I know like I work for the macro point company, and we've had to go completely backward. Like we started to seeing like fraud people come in like ELD companies requesting, and we're like, not even there's not even a carrier that's requesting this. You
Right.
are like, who are you? And then like they'd have like a Gmail and like just like all the weird things, and you're like, what is happening? And then we had to go backwards and look at all the old ELD companies too, and be like, is there somebody that's through here? And luckily, I think we kind of caught it before it became like a big problem on like how we vet internally because luckily we have guys that are paranoid, and
Yeah.
so but I think that
Rightly so.
yeah, definitely. And I think that's the next wave. So many people have trusted ELDs so heavily and like they just think that's it. Well, if the ELD company doesn't have cybersecurity measurements or your truck doesn't have cybersecurity measurements, like anything can get manipulated. Like it doesn't matter what you're trusting, it could be changed.
Well, it's going to be really interesting in the next decade too, because are you familiar with some like platform science, for example?
Yep.
So like as things shift from like these very simple, small, tiny contained ELD systems to these larger telematic systems where there's an actual marketplace.
Yeah.
And as it moves from, like these third party telematics providers to like built in dash
Yeah.
technologies, like your ELD, your logs, everything becomes just an app that's actually installed into the dash of the truck. Right. So like I think that's going to help, the fix a lot of that kind of stuff because now like most everything you're doing is through a trusted marketplace and a trusted store and certified apps
Yeah.
versus like any run of the mill, here, stick this in your truck and
Right.
now you've got a
You're,
logging.
you're compliant and it costs nothing.
Yeah.
We don't really do anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see when companies like that gain more traction at the OEM level and things start getting built into the truck that I think a lot of that stuff will start
Yeah, I'm
fixing
surprised fleets haven't done that. I mean, not fleets. I'm surprised, like trucking companies or whatever, like Freightliner, they kind of haven't already developed one themselves and just had it be part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all working on it. I bet every single one of them have it on their radar. I mean, automotive is kind of going down the same path as avionics and aircraft and things like that, where
Yeah.
it becomes more, especially in the day of AI and autonomy, that like it just makes sense to actually have a data platform versus like think of it as a data platform rather than thinking of it as a vehicle.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm sure they're all working on it.
Yeah. I mean, like my car is not, I mean, it's a newer car or whatever, but like it alerts me on everything you can think of. Like your
Mhm.
gas is low, but it alerts me on my app more than I even in my car. I'm like, what?
Yep,
Yeah. It's crazy.
it
Uh,
is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying, yeah, it is crazy. Like it's like the capabilities there. And I think like passenger vehicles and stuff, like the technology's evolved a lot faster than on the logistics side.
Hmm.
But even last year at Manifest conference, like all the big OEMs, so like Navistar, Paccar, Freightliner, like they Kodiak, like they all had trucks there. And like
Yeah.
you go in and it's just a glass cockpit. It's just everything's glass, everything's built in. Like even all the mirrors like are just cameras now. And so like everything's being digitized and all that data is being unified. And then you've got like platform science with their virtual vehicle, like they're doing an amazing thing from our perspective of they're unifying all that data. And so like we work with multiple different fleets that all have platform science. They have every single type of truck out there, but every
Hmm.
truck looks the same to us because it goes through virtual vehicle and that data is unified and standardized into a certain format. And so it's been pretty awesome. That's allowed vendors like ELD vendors, navigation vendors, cybersecurity, like all of us to kind of service the logistics industry without having to deal with 30 different trucks from
Yeah.
20 different years and ages and makes and models. And so I think just as the technology grows, we're at that point where the paradigm's starting to shift. And it's going to make it a lot easier to do things like, detect when certain tractors are hooked to certain trailers and then vet it
Right.
prior to them even being able to drive off. Like things like that
Mhm.
become enabled through this data ecosystem. Whereas traditionally in the past, like you have no idea who's touching your trailer, who's touching, like what truck is there. Like, yeah,
I can
you
almost
just don't know.
imagine yeah, I can almost imagine that information, like, pinging back to, like, your TMS system, and then it's confirming that within the load, and then if something's off, then it throws up a red flag, and then you can
Mhm.
see in real time that whatever, and then that data gets sent over. Another thing I was gonna say is I think on the brokerage side, they're gonna start vetting if a not whether or not a carrier has ELD. I think it needs to be where, like, you're vetting what ELD company it is, because, really with unfortunately, with drivers and carriers, it's where if a broker is not they're not setting like the precedent of like this is our standards and shippers too, not just brokers, but if they're not setting like a precedent of like this is these are our standards and then kind of having everyone conform to that,
Mhm.
really then all these fly by night ELD companies are going to still stay around until I think as an industry we push. I mean, I don't like having like just big boys in the mix. I like,
Right.
small businesses, whatever, but like they need to almost share their cybersecurity standards as an ELD company and show that they're legitimate for us as like brokers and stuff like that to vet them.
Right. And I think, and I think the market will actually help solve that a little bit,
Yeah.
because as people lose more loads, they're going to start like the big enterprises. Like if they're going to work with an owner operator, like you have to conform to these specific specs. You got to have a platform science or a Samsar. You got to have GPS tracking. You got to have
Yeah.
this. You got to have that. Like they'll start mandating that because the cost to them is massive if there's an issue. So buying down risk, they'll put more requirements on their owner operators, their subcontractors, or whoever else.
Yeah. Makes sense. Crazy. Well, I'm excited to see where everything
Yeah.
goes and really cool that you guys are around to, be able to do the things you're doing on the carrier side. Cause I think that's, eventually it would be great to have your information even feed over to like pre-vetting stuff,
Hmm.
which of course is like kind of what I do. But I think both sides of the business, carriers need to take this cargo theft and fraud stuff more seriously because it is impacting them. Even if it's just one load or whatever, it's still making a big difference. Where I know, like on the brokerage side, it's been a big deal because they get hit usually like in multiple
Hmm.
quantities, not just one truck. But I think it as an industry, we need, different ways to protect. And to me, cybersecurity is really priority number one, and then the rest of it will kind of 'cause that will fix strategic theft, and then
Hmm.
there always will be straight theft. But even like your system being able to detect, hey, something's weird here. This guy's sitting here, and this is
Yeah.
happening. You'll be able to even predict, straight theft from happening. So very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what's really, I mean, taking cargo theft seriously, we talked to a fleet that said in 2024, they had 3 incidences of cargo theft. In
Mm.
2025, as of November 1st, they had 13.
Wow.
So, like, that's the kind of growth that's occurring, and the amount of theft that's occurring. Like, it's not just growing linearly, it's growing very, very quickly. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think a lot more people are taking it a lot more serious now because it has become so prolific.
Yeah, and I think they are targeting fleets too. I think before they were targeting customers, and things like that, but if they can see a vulnerable fleet where they have low security and the drivers don't do this and they just throw a trailer wherever. I mean, like, not to throw Landstar on the bus, but like I saw a Landstar trailer loaded just at the side of the road somewhere, which I'm sure a driver just quit and dropped it somewhere. But I mean, it's stuff like that. Like the bad guys can pick up on those patterns and signals.
Mhm.
So I think, like you were mentioning, even with the fleet stuff, because on the overall cargo theft, I think we were kind of at like a stale. We're percentage wise, we're about even now, maybe trending even a little bit down. But I think they're getting more sophisticated on the carrier end, targeting carriers, specific carriers.
Yeah, and increasing their ROI. Like, they're getting smarter about it so they know what to target, and so
Yeah,
they can be more efficient.
I'm
And
sure as
yeah,
soon as they see, yeah, this carrier has Fleet Defender now, so now they're harder to get. I'm going to go after a different carrier that doesn't have.
yeah, go after the weakest link. I mean,
Yeah,
right? Like, they're just looking for the win, they're trying to make the money, so you go after the weakest link.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's easy. Cool. Well, thanks for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
What conferences are you going to and how can everybody reach you and all that stuff?
So you can reach us by going to fleetdefender.com. And then I'm going to be at, let's see, Manifest, TMC, Freight Waves. Like we kind of hit all the big ones.
Okay.
And I can't announce certain things yet. There's a couple of really big announcements that'll be out in the next month or two, but you'll definitely, like, if you're at any logistics conference, you'll be seeing the name quite a bit more.
Cool. And they should follow you on LinkedIn then, I guess, to see all the new
Yep.
announcements. That's probably the best
Yep.
place. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And like I said, I'm really glad that you reached out to me and we met and learned all the things you're doing. Cause there's just stuff that I don't know on the carrier side of, fuel theft even. Like I don't know all that stuff. So very cool. Thanks for educating me and coming on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye everybody.